Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 16th episode of PAOK Talk. We are your hosts, Angelo and Jano. Jano, how are you this afternoon?
I am well, Angelo. Thank you for doing that maths, which has been a stumbling block for you. Well done on doing that on air and getting it right. Yeah, I'm well, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. You made me leave the bar early to come and to do this chat, but it's all right. We're all good here. So,
Hey,
eh,
man, some things are more important than alcohol, like PAOK, alright? Come on, man.
exactly.
Priorities.
Exactly. So, before we begin, again, I'll just remind everyone we are on Twitter and on Instagram at Pauk Talk. Search for us there. We're pretty heavily involved in both, active in both. So, be sure to follow us. We post immediate thoughts about games, any news, videos, stuff like that. So, make sure you follow us on social media. So, jumping into the episode, would you agree that I think we should just kind of skip over the Granada game, maybe just touch on a couple things. But I feel like it was kind of a disappointment to the end of the European campaign. So maybe we'll just give a little input, one or two things from that game, and then we could talk about our European campaign as a whole. How's that sound?
Yeah, I mean, given it was a dead rubber and, it was, the Omonia result was disappointing, we're playing for nothing. That sounds good to me.
Right. So I'll ask you a couple questions. I mean, about the Granada game, obviously, how do you think it went? Any notes to that you want to speak of real quick about the game?
I mean, nothing in particular. I was happy that he rotated a lot of as much of the squad as he could. Obviously, Svab got a rest. Augusto only got half an hour or so off the bench. Um, Same with Wage, who I think will start. We'll talk about that later against Aris. Yeah. No, I was happy that he did that. So yeah, nothing else really to add from myself. I mean, I know you got some. What do you got some thoughts on Gutsia starting?
Yeah, I just think it was the wrong decision to start him. I know it really means nothing, and um, it's cool to get one of the have him be the youngest PAOK player to play in the European campaign. But I just think it was a situation where Pablo put him in where, especially the way we were going to play, sitting back defensively a little bit against a better team, one of the forwards or wingers. It was a tough position to put him in. I think that he could have waited until if you wanted him to start, maybe start in a cup game or start in a league game against a lesser team. But to put him in that situation when he really didn't look good, he overwhelmed a little bit. At least to me, I think that was the wrong decision. What do you think about that?
Yeah, look, I have no problem with him starting this game. Like we said, it was a dead rubber. I mean, if there's ever a time to make a European debut, it's when there's no pressure on the result. He could have turned the ball over 3 times in dangerous spot with Cop three. I mean, that wouldn't have been good, but the result had no impact on our European campaign. So I don't mind it. I think it was also so he could give Zivkovic a rest. Obviously, Zivkovic came on at half time. I think lack of depth in our wingers is also why. So, like we said, he rotated.
Right.
So I don't really have a problem with it personally. But yeah, like I mean, what you say, I guess he was kind of thrown into a tricky situation. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. It was a dead rubber. So if there was ever a time, this game was it.
Right. So how do you rate our European campaign? I think that we obviously started well. We ended obviously not well. So would you consider it a success as an overall whole or a failure?
Look, I think at the start of the season, I wanted to make the Europa League group stage was the goal. So we did that. So we have to give the team a tick and a pass for that. Um, the way that it panned out, I'm disappointed. I think most fans would be disappointed that we haven't qualified from the group stage. Um, so I mean, if I was giving it a grade, I'd probably give it like a C plus. So I mean, it's pass, but it could have been and it probably should have been better. And I think we'll look back on the PSV game in Holland as the crucial game. So Omonia on paper was the weakest team. I know everyone else beat them, but the 2 games over that they played against us, we didn't deserve more than a point, I'd say, over those 2 games. So that PSV game in Holland where we're 2-0 up will be the one that we'll look back on and rue because that's a 6 point swing there. And PSV end up on top 6 points clear of us. So We hold on to our lead in that game, and we end up going through. So disappointing how the group stage pans out, but I think overall the goal was achieved, which was to make the Europa League group stage, and that was done pretty early, right, by knocking out Besiktas way back in August, I think it
Right.
was. Your thoughts on it, on the
Yeah, I
European
think
campaign?
I think we touched on it in an earlier episode how the goals are ever changing. They're fluid, right? It's like a living situation where we're at the beginning of the campaign. Yes, we just wanted to make the European group stage. We know that we would be the Europa League group stage. We knew that we'd be unseated in the Champions League, so we were like, well, just let's get to the group stage. Maybe get a win against Besiktas. If not, at least you have a chance to go through the Europa League qualifiers. But once we got that group again, we knew it was a tough group. We knew it was a situation where it could have been worse. It could have been better though. But after the first few games, especially when at the PSV game at home when we won, we came on the air and said that we could even top this group, and for us to finish third, and even like the last few games, I would say that the second half of the PSV game, the whole Omonia game, and then the Granada game, I mean, we just look lifeless, right? We look like obviously we wanted to win, but we just looked like we were just going through the motions. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I go back to that PSV game. I mean, not exactly an implosion, but a couple little things that game. We said starting to guide us as a defensive midfielder in what was basically his first start. The Omonia game was poor, except for like, a 20-minute period. And I mean, I don't put too much stock into the Granada game, given it was a dead rubber. So those two, yeah, disappointing, hour against PSV and a disappointing match against Omonia really leave a bitter taste in the mouth at the end of this European campaign.
Yeah. So I would say I like your grade. I like the C plus grade. If you asked me at the beginning of the year, at the summer, I would have said for us to make the group stage in the Europa League, that'd be at B. But after what happened and us defeating two big clubs, then losing to clubs or not getting points and losing the clubs that we shouldn't have. I think that's where I think that's what it comes down to. Is I would say it was average, right? I mean, it could have been better, it could have been worse. We could have not even made it to the group stages. Then we'd have a whole different situation on our hands. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think a C plus is good. Moving on towards one of the situation that I see people um, talking about. We'll get to that in a bit. So we have the big game Sunday, right? Sunday, my time, against Aris. They're doing really well right now. They're in third place, even in terms of matches played. We have 24 points. They have 23. We have a plus minus goal differential of 13. They have 1 and 9. Huge game. Obviously, it's the Derby, the Inner City Derby. Um, First, let's talk about them and their season that they've been having. Do you think they're genuinely title contenders, or do you think they're going to cool off towards the end of the year?
Yeah, it's really a great question if they are really title contenders. As you said, massive clash. So it's always a big game, but it's made even bigger this season by the fact that Ardis has had a fantastic start to the year and, like you said, are only a point behind us and 2 points behind the top of the table, who admittedly has played a game less, but regardless, they are definitely in the mix at the moment. Um, Look, I don't think that um, they'll last in the title race. I mean, I have question marks on whether we're going to last in the title race, and I
Right.
think, all due respect to Ardis, I think we have a better team. I think in areas of the ground, I think their midfield is pretty solid, particularly defensively. And the Australian James Jago has had a great start to life as an artist player, and I think he was voted as player of the month in the Super League for November or October, if I'm not mistaken. So he's had a really great start and has really helped shore him up defensively. And if you look at their stats, they haven't conceded too many goals. Um, so I mean, if you can maintain a solid defense, you're always going to be in games and hard to beat, which is what they've been. And they've been finding ways to score. They've had troubles with their striker, so Manos has started scoring. They've brought in a Spanish guy, Lopez, who hasn't had a great start to life. Not too dissimilar to Cholak. The difference is I'm pretty sure Lopez was a free transfer and we spent three
Right.
million on Cholak. So
Right.
take what you want from that. But yeah, look, I don't think long term they'll be in with the race. But I wouldn't have thought that they would have had this good a start to this season anyway. So, I mean, it's a massive game. It's always a massive game. Um, but I think they're going to have a little bit more fire in the belly than normal. I mean, do you agree with that, or do you think that they're in this for the long haul, and we're going to be going into the playoffs with Artie still just over our shoulder, or even ahead of us potentially?
No, no, I don't see them being. I could see them finishing fourth. I mean, they're 7 points ahead, 8 points ahead of Panathinaikos right now. I don't feel like they're going to drop behind them, and they have a game in hand. But I could see them finishing fourth, but far far away, right? I could see something along the lines of them being, I don't know, 10, 11 points behind second place going into the playoffs. But still, that I think that's a good season for them, right? I mean, they started off hot, and that's the luxury that they have now. Is even if they cool off, right? Which we're not saying they will, but if they cool off, which we both think they will, then that still is like a safety crutch that they have. That they started off hot, so if they fall down a little bit, yeah, they might drop some points, but they'll still be in the top four, roughly. I don't feel like Panathinaikos or Volos or Atromitos are going to pass them.
Mm,
You touched on a couple players, a couple good players that they brought in, but I just think that there's too much firepower for Olympiacos. Obviously, PAOK, and I think Ike will overtake them relatively soon. I don't know, anything can happen, but that's just my prediction.
Yeah, look, as it stands, I'm not like, I mean, form is fickle, and I know in Greece things can change quite quickly, but Ajax in a big slump at the moment, and there's a potential managerial change coming there. Ardis, on the other hand, has been nothing but solid and has just won the games it should. So, as it stands, I'm not 100% sure that Ajax ends up overtaking them,
Mm-hmm.
but in saying that, I've seen teams in Greece have good starts to the year and then completely fall away in the second half to the year. And it's happened against Ardis. Like I've watched us versus them in the first round of matches, and it's a slog. It's a hard game. They're a good team, and then by the time we verse them later in the year, they look like a different team. They're a shadow of themselves. So, I mean, as it stands, I'm not so sure Ike will overtake, but I mean, like you said, you can't know if there is a managerial change at Ike. Things can change. Players have that new manager bounce, as it's called. So, we'll just see what happens there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, sorry, I missed my train. I have to go run it. I have to go run after it right now. I know people are gonna
So,
mention that. I try to take my laptop and run away, but yeah. So talking about that match, we have a situation that seems like is brewing regarding the goalkeeper role between Zivkovic and Paskalakis. Do you think there's a possible change in the works? Do you think that we're trying to sell one of them? Um, and who would you consider being the starter at this point?
well, here's the thing. I'll throw it back to you shortly because I know that you have strong thoughts on this. But I mean, it's clear to me that Pascalakis has become the number one again, and I'm not sure. So I'll say at the start of the year, when debating in the summer who should be our number one keeper, both keepers are flawed. Zivkovic, I think, is the more solid keeper. Won't make as many mistakes, and whereas I think Pascalakis can save the unsavable more than
Right.
Zivkovic can. So I wanted Pascalakis just for that heading into the summer. Now they went with Zivkovic, and he was solid, and he actually made a couple of big saves over the journey. Um, but all of a sudden, Pascalakis got the game against Lamia where he looked shaky. He dropped a couple of like easy crosses. That's probably another knock on him. That with crosses, he's not great. He punches it when he should catch.
Mm-hmm.
He can fumble and drop the ball in dangerous areas. So, and I mean, we saw it against Granada. I'm not sure if you caught that part where Pascalakis charged out. He ended up handling the ball outside the area. And obviously no VAR in the Europa League group stage, so he got away with it. But he can lose his bearings, but he can make big saves. So, I mean, I was happy with Zivkovic, and I've kind of become surprised. But before I throw to you, when you look at the stats, so Pascalakis had kept 4 clean sheets in the playoffs at the end of last season and has kept 3 since coming back into the team. So he might fail the eye test. He might look more shaky than Zivkovic, but clearly the stats back Paskalakis. Now I don't know how much stock you put into stats like that because obviously, like a game against Lamia, he had nothing to do except drop a few crosses. So I mean, I would have kept a clean sheet in that game. So I mean, I don't know how much stock you put into that. I'm surprised that he's kind of seemingly come out of nowhere and taken Zivkovic's spot. But yeah, I mean, I think Paskalakis is going to start, and yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on Zivkovic being dropped?
I think Paskalakis needs to leave the club, and I know like I'm not
Well,
being kidding in terms of I think Zivkovic is the clear starter or should be the clear starter. When you look at this and a little background about me when I was a goalkeeper in college and one of the things that I was knocked on I was a great shot stopper, but one of the things was I had difficulty with catching. It's kind of the same thing. I was great at reflexes. My positioning was raw. My shot stopping was not, but my the handling, the catching crosses, long shots were difficult for me, and I ended up losing my job because of this with a more polished, safe goalkeeper. Now I understood that. So for me, when I see Paskalakis dropping clear crosses, punching balls that he has no purpose punching, that's for me in my head, that's a sign of weakness. That's a sign of um, a loss of confidence that he's not confident in his hands. And that's going to come back to bite us. Zivkovic, to me, did nothing to lose his job. He was the starter. He should be the starter until he does something to lose his job. Even if Garcia thinks that Paskalakis is the better goalkeeper, Zivkovic has been the starter for most of the season, and he's done excellent. He's brought us where we were now, right? But it's just it's crazy to me how we just keep going back and forth, back and forth. We ruled him out, then now all of a sudden he's back. It's a situation where you have to go with, and the team looks more confident with Zivkovic back there. He made those two big saves against. It was Omonia, right, in the Europa League where it was the double save, right?
yep.
Um, he didn't, and none of those goals against PSV were really his fault, you know. So it's just it's hard for me to understand why Paskalakis is getting a second chance when if Zikovic messed up, then that's one thing, right? But for me, if he hasn't done anything wrong, then what's the point of the goalie change, right? I mean, we're in second place with a young team. We're I think even the obviously not the diehard fan, but the 90% of the PAOK fans will say we'll be happy with second place. Obviously, we'd like to win it, but I think we'd be happy with it. We're going where we're going. We're doing well in the league. Why mix it up? So for me, I'd have Zivkovic be the starter. It's clear as day. It's clear and simple. And like you said, look at the teams that he played. Right, Granada. They brought in a couple players that were new. We were sitting back. We had a lot of defending. The Lamia game again, like you mentioned, not that many shots on him. For me, when you're a professional goalkeeper, if you have a solid defense in front of you, goalies look better than they are based off the stats. I was trying to find the games that he played. I don't know if you have that real quick
Yeah,
against. Go ahead,
I do. What do you want? Do you want Zivkovic or Paskalakis
Paskalakis.
names?
Give me the last games that he's played.
Yeah, so he's played Lamia. He's played Lamia, Asteras, and Granada. So Omonia in between, where we lost 2-1, was Zivkovic, where, as you mentioned, he made the double save. I wonder if remember the first Omonia goal where Zivkovic made the save, and I thought he parried it okay, but
Yes,
maybe
you're right. Yeah, now that I think about that, yeah, but also the defender let him go.
yeah. Look, don't get me wrong, it's not Zivkovic. There was also another moment in the Omonia game. It didn't lead to a goal, and goalkeepers get judged on that a lot. Paskalakis in that year where we won the double was huge, but he had mistakes. The mistakes just weren't punished, so people
Mm-hmm.
forgot about him. Zivkovic on Omonia's first corner came out and got
Yeah.
nothing on the ball, right? So I mean, it didn't cost us, but was there some cracks? I mean, I don't know. I think I agree with you fundamentally that I would stick with Zivkovic, but sorry, continue. That was the games that
So
Paskalakis
so
played.
I just want to touch on this. That play looked like he called. I forgot who it was, Varela or something. Because if you look back, his reaction, he immediately looked at him, at that
Mm.
defender. So
No, you
normally,
heard him. You
What's
heard
that?
him say keeper because with no fans, you could hear Zivkovic. Are you talking about the corner?
Yeah,
Yeah, you hear Zivkovic call keeper. So whoever it was, yeah, pulled out for him.
right. But I think he pulled out a little late. So I think it was kind of a miscommunication between the center back and him. Maybe he thought the center back wasn't gonna. I think it was Varela. I'm not sure. And then another thing too is mentally, goalkeepers are fragile creatures. If they think that they have a chance at losing their position, they're going to get more nervous. And maybe, I'm not giving him an excuse. Maybe Zivkovic is seeing this at practice, where, Paskalakis is starting to get more of the first team runs. He's starting to be played in more games. So in your head as a goalkeeper, you're a little bit more tense, right? Rather than you being free to play knowing that you're the number one. So I mean, maybe that could have something to do with it as well. Again, I just think that Zivkovic should be the starter. I agree with you. I think Paskalakis is going to be the starter Sunday. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he doesn't come back to bite us. But I mean, based off of the history, and all it takes is one goal, and all it takes is for Aris to score a cheap goal like that, then they're going to sit back and they're going to escape with the win. That's not my
Yeah,
prediction, but you get what I'm saying?
yeah. Look, I know what you mean. And just before we move off the goalkeeping situation, um, I don't know if this has anything to do with it. They saw the Otis game coming, but in his last two starts at the Vigiliovic Stadium, Zivkovic has conceded 11 goals. So he copped 7 with Xanthi 2 seasons ago, and he was the keeper in the 4-2. I'm not saying he was at fault in the 4-2 for all of the goals. He was for some. But I just wonder if mentally, you mentioned they're fragile creatures. I
Right.
wonder if,
Maybe.
Garcia and the technical team was looking at that thinking this guy is like, he sees that stadium and has nightmares. So I wonder if that's played a role at all. I mean, I'm just speculating
Right. No, I
completely
mean,
there.
yeah. I mean, I can't say they're fragile, then dispute that stat. I agree. That's a possibility. Another situation, right back. It looks like Virinha is practicing with the team. And then obviously we know about Wagwe. Who would you start at right back?
I mean, it's a tough question because Wage has been getting better in attack the more the games have gone. Looks like he's finding some rhythm. He hasn't really given me any confidence defensively. Vieirinha, I mean, coming off another injury, admittedly short term. I don't know. I think I'm inclined to start the fitter Wage and then sub Vieirinha in. But at the same time, I mean, I'm 50-50 on it. I really don't know. Vieirinha is fit, captain, experience. I'm genuinely 50-50. I think I would go with just the fitter player, which is Wage, with Vieirinha coming in. You have 5 subs, so it's not going to burn a sub. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Wagwe should be the starter. You look at Vieirinha; he's lost a step. He's not that solid of a defender as it is. He's more an attacking wingback, right? Um, I just feel like if you're Aris, who would you rather go against? I think in this situation, who would you rather if they were playing on the right side? If Vieirinha or Wagwe was playing, which one would you rather go against attacking?
I mean, it's much of a muchness, man. I mean, I guess you want, yeah, I don't know.
I
I think it's
think
I pers-
so.
Okay.
I was gonna say I think they'd want Vieirinha there, and I think if Vieirinha is our right back, they're gonna pressure down that left side as often as they can, and he's not fit in terms of being he wouldn't play the full game. He's injury prone the last so often. I would just put Wagwe, and Vieirinha has done a lot for the club. Obviously, he's a consummate professional. He's PAOK through and through. Um, but I don't know. I want to say his time is done, but he's definitely a different player. And I know I'm going to get yelled at by some people on the forums that will probably call me a not true PAOK fan, especially since I'm not saying their name in all capital letters. but
Oh my god.
it's definitely I don't think he should be starting right back in the derby. If you want to play him against lesser teams, that's fine when we're going to have a lot of the possession. But I don't think we're going to be having a lot of possession this game. I think it's going to be a game where it's going to be up and down. Both teams are going to think that they could win, right? So, I mean, if you're Audi, why would you sit back? So, I feel like Wagwe is in better position to play this game.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think if Vieirinha was fully fit, I would go with him. But I don't think he's, like you said, he's not going to last a full 90. Fullback is a physically taxing position up and down the flank all game. So I would much rather give Wagge like an hour and then put Vieirinha on for half an hour when, everyone starts to tire and he can maybe, hit them then. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the physical side is really going to cost Vieirinha. So I mean, he's really, works against him at this stage. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Garcia, gives him the start. But I would start, like you said.
Right. How about center back?
Yeah, man, that's an interesting. Well, I'll throw to you first here. I mean, so we've seen different pairings over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, there's been rotation. Last week against Asteras, we saw Ingus and Michailidis. Midweek, we saw Ingus and Varela because Crespo had to play at fullback.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks like he's kind of broken them up into duos. So the famous and what will end up being the historic pairing of Varela Crespo that was at the heart of the defense in that historic, 18-19 season,
Mm-hmm.
and Ingus and Michailidis as the younger guys. Would would you say it's going to be one of those two duos, or would you say a different combination? And if it's one of those two duos, which duo do you think gets the gig?
I think Ingerson is solidified to start. Um, for me, I'd play Varela, knowing that he's done it in the past. I don't think he's really lost a step. That's the difference between him and Vieirinha for me is Varela is still strong player. I mean, he's lost a step in terms of speed, but center backs, if you lose a step in speed, as long as you keep your I want to say head and knowledge of positioning, you're fine, right? And I think he has that. Michailidis has done well recently. But I could see him young in the derby wanting to do too much. There's times when he gets caught trying to dribble and trying to move up, and that's hurt him. But I would stick with Ingerson Varela right now.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I would with a Michailidis point, yeah. Like, I mean, we've mentioned that he's been nothing but solid really since Garcia came in, and he hasn't been playing every game. I mean, it's a tough one. I don't think anyone's going to be overawed. I think the no fans kind of eliminates that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if Michailidis does start, that won't be an issue. I mean, that's a bit of a knock on his play. Like he can hold it a little bit too much, or try to wait for that great pass to open up before he releases. I really don't know. I think I agree with you that Ingerson's probably locked into start, but again, Garcia being the player he was, I feel like he might favour experience, and I think he might go with Varela Crespo
Mm-hmm.
as the more experienced duo. But I don't know. Does Michailidis not playing at all on Thursday mean anything, given he rotated so much of the squad? Do you read anything into that?
No, I don't. I think that you make a rotation, but then you also have to play it game by game, right? I mean, who knows how the last couple practices have gone, but I don't read into that much.
Okay. Well, yeah, look, in terms of what I would start, I genuinely don't know. I'm almost inclined to say Ingus and Michailidis. I feel like I've liked that duo over the last two league games. Admittedly, against Lamia, they didn't have much to do. And against Asteras, kind of similarly. And then we went down to 10. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think I have a feeling he'll go with the tried and tested Varela Crespo, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, right. And then the final one, it looks like Cigaras is likely to start in the midfield. Do you have any issues with that? Would you play someone else there? How would you go about that?
I mean, given El Kaduri is suspended, I mean, the other options are, so we're assuming Augusto and Zvam. We're not assuming. We know Augusto and Zvam will be the two midfielders, the
Right.
other two midfielders. El Kaduri suspended. Can you make a case for this game being a game for a City? I don't think so. Inua doesn't seem like he has any confidence. Like, doesn't seem like the coaching staff has too much confidence in him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, then I think that's all we have in central midfield, unless you want to go someone more attacking in Bizesvard, who we know looks like he's on his way out, so I don't think he'll even be in the squad. So I think Tsigaras has looked better since that PSV game, um, not playing as a pure defensive midfielder. So yeah, I mean, given the options, I don't have any issue with it. I think if El Kaduri wasn't suspended, I mean, no doubt that he would have started with along with Augusto and Svab. So I don't personally have any issues. Would you see this as an opportunity to start someone like a City in a game like this, or you're happy with Tsigaras?
I'm fine with Cigars. I mean, I've loved the CT since last year. I think people have knocked him. I think he's a great player. He's every time he comes in, he does well. Then we're like, wow, look at what he does, and then he just goes back to riding the bench a couple of times. So I
Mm,
think he definitely needs to get more playing time. Against bigger clubs. Now, is this a game where you start, Tsigaras, and then if we go up, then you bring in the CT in the 50th, 60th minute, maybe? Or is this a game where you start a CT, kind of shore up the defense or the defensive side of the ball, and then bring in other people depending on how the game goes? Right. So I think it depends on his playing style. Does he want to kind of play it safe, or does he want to go up? If he wants to play it safe, then I think that City is a good call because then you can even push up Schwab and Augusto a little bit because you have a City back there. If he's gonna go balls to the wall and or even just try to get a couple goals, then you don't play him and then you bring him in after you score those goals. But either way, I'm fine with. It's not going to be something where I challenge Garcia on his selections. I think either or, it's fine.
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a fair assessment. I don't think I would start a City in this game. I mean, yeah, I mean, we're going to get into our kind of predictions on the match now anyway, but I don't think it's going to be. I think possession will be even or in our favour. I honestly think that we prefer to not have possession. I mean, we've seen that where we're a lot more dangerous on the counter. And with Artis being so solid defensively, I think we will end up having more of the ball by default. So I think SCD probably not the game for him. Like you said, if we do get a lead though, and we're going into the second half, then yeah, there's definitely a role for him to play in this game.
Right. All right. Prediction on the resultant score. What say you?
All right, so I think it's going to be a tight game, and that sucks for me because it's a 4:30 a.m. kickoff in Australia. So I feel like I'm going to be waking up to what's going to be a midfield battle, tight. Both teams not wanting to give too much away. I see it as a draw.
Mm-hmm.
We struggle over the last couple of seasons with Adis. I know we beat them in the playoffs, but they were kind of having trouble as players were leaving, not out of contract. They beat us last year 4-2, broke our unbeaten run. They're always up for this game, and they're a better team this year than they have been in previous years where they've beaten us. So I see it as a draw. I'll go 1-1, even though my inkling is it's going to be decided by a goal or less. So if there is a win one way or another, I think it's going to be a 1-0. But I'll go 1-1.
Yeah, I have a draw as well. I think 2-2.
Be brave. Be brave, Angelo.
No,
Fucking come
I'm
on.
playing it safe. I'm playing it. Oh, you want me?
Come on.
I don't see us winning this game. To be honest, I hope I'm wrong. I'd say a draw. I'm gonna go 2-2.
Yeah.
But like you said, they always come out ready. More pumped up. But I think it's different with Garcia. He knows how big this game is, right? So I think that plays a big part in it. But I feel like Aris, as some would say, the little brother of PAOK. Obviously, that's just deciding on depending on which side you're on, right?
You're
Um,
going to piss a lot of people off with that statement,
it's
Angelo.
okay. It's all right. We have 40 followers. I'm on the roll tonight. Don't ask me about my Dina Aftore because I will do that. um, I would say it's a 2-2. I would say it's a 2-2 draw. I could see a team maybe even coming out 2-0 and then them sitting back and getting. Now, for me, the big thing is we have to score first. Whether it's 1-0, a win, or 1-1, because if Audi scores first, it's going to be difficult to break them down. So the big key for PAOK is to score first.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The first goal is always key. So you're sticking with 2-all.
I'm
You'd
saying
like
it.
the
I'm
goals
saying
in
it.
this game.
No, no, Alex. No, I'm gonna stick 2-2.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, hopefully you'll win, but I mean, I'm with you. Just they fire up, and it's always a tough game, especially at beginning of this. It's always a really hard game to win. So
Right.
we'll see.
Hope I'm wrong. Hope I'm wrong. I still love that goal. That geez, what was his name? He played with Sekou Olise. He was a forward. He scored that.
Kamara.
Yeah, he scored the volley. Do you remember that
Yeah, I do remember
from the
that
left
2012
side? Oh,
13 season, I think. Yeah,
boom!
great goal.
That was beautiful. One of the best goals I've seen anyone score for PAOK. That was a beautiful goal. But yeah, I mean that was a great game. So hopefully we get a win. Hopefully we get a memorable game, and it shoots us up towards maybe competing with Olympiacos for the title.
I think if we win this game, I mean, I think we'll be in the mix. But it's a big game for that reason. Aris does generally cut or has cut points from us. So Olympiacos went there and won. So we need to win as well. And it's obviously tougher for us. They, like we said, they have a lot. They seem to fire up a lot more. So it's a big. I think it's a. If we win, it's a bit of a statement win in terms of our title aspirations.
Agreed. I agree with that.
Uh,
Any final thoughts before we head out?
Nah, that's all, man. Thank you for cutting your drinking sessions short and doing this. Hopefully, the people, the Bulk fans, appreciate your
My
sacrifice.
sacrifice. They don't understand the sacrifice I made for them. So you guys could enjoy this show. So hopefully all the Twitter followers and everyone else thanks me afterwards. All right. Well, thank you all for listening to the 16th episode. Be sure to like the video. Make sure you subscribe. Turn on notifications so you see when we post a new video. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And just share our account as much as you can to help us grow. And hopefully we all get a good game this weekend. And our post match review will be a happier one than a sad one. Right?
That's it, man. Fingers crossed. Let's see how we go.
All right. Take care, everyone. Be safe.